Marcus Chun wiped grease from his hands with an old rag as he stared at the government auction listing on his cracked tablet screen. The image showed a twisted mass of dark metal sitting in Lot 47 of the Henderson salvage yard, looking more like modern art than a spacecraft. The description was brief: alien vessel, origin unknown, non-functional, sold as is for scrap value only. The bidding had been slow all morning. Most serious buyers had passed on the mysterious wreck, focusing instead on decommissioned human military vessels that promised easier profits. Marcus understood their logic perfectly. Alien technology was notoriously difficult to reverse engineer, and this particular ship looked like it had been through a meat grinder. But Marcus wasn't most buyers. He was desperate, 3 months behind on rent for his salvage operation. With creditors circling like vultures, he needed something big to keep his business alive. His competitors had better connections, newer equipment, and actual capital to work with. All Marcus had was stubbornness and a willingness to take risks that bordered on stupidity. The auction moved to Lot 47, and Marcus felt his heart rate increase. The auctioneer's voice crackled through cheap speakers mounted around the yard. Next up, we have this alien vessel recovered from the Titan debris field 6 months ago. Starting bid is 5,000 credits. Silence stretched across the assembled crowd. Marcus counted maybe 30 people scattered around the lot, most of them looking bored or checking their phones. A few pointed at the wreck and whispered among themselves, probably making jokes about its appearance. Do I hear 5,000? The auctioneer's voice carried a note of resignation. Marcus's hand, trembling slightly, raised his bitter paddle. 5,000. The auctioneer perked up with surprise. We have 5,000 from bidder 97. Do I hear 6? More silence. Marcus could feel eyes turning toward him, some curious, others amused. He recognized a few faces from the salvage community, competitors who probably thought he'd finally lost his mind. Going once at 5,000, the auctioneer called. Marcus held his breath. 5,000 credits represented almost everything he had left in his business account. If this gamble failed, he'd be finished within a week. Going twice. A hand raised near the back of the crowd. 6,000. Marcus's stomach dropped. He turned to see Jake Morrison, one of the bigger operators in the sector, grinning at him with obvious amusement. Morrison had a reputation for driving up bids on items he didn't even want, just to mess with smaller competitors. 7,000. Marcus called out, his voice steadier than he felt. Morrison's grin widened. 8. The bastard was playing games, Marcus realized. Morrison probably had no real interest in the alien wreck, but he'd seen Marcus's desperation and decided to have some fun. 8,000 would wipe out Marcus's remaining capital completely. Marcus closed his eyes and thought about his father, who'd started this salvage business 40 years ago with nothing but determination and a willingness to work harder than anyone else. He thought about the workers he'd already had to lay off, good people with families who depended on steady wages. 10,000, Marcus said loudly. The crowd stirred with interest now. 10,000 was serious money for a piece of scrap that might contain nothing useful at all. Morrison's expression shifted from amusement to calculation. Do I hear 11? The auctioneer asked. Morrison stared at Marcus for a long moment, then shook his head and stepped back. He'd had his fun, but he wasn't stupid enough to overpay for junk just to mess with a competitor. Going once at 10,000. Going twice. Sold to bidder 97. Marcus felt a mixture of relief and terror wash over him. He just spent money he couldn't afford on something that might be completely worthless. But it was his now for better or worse. The paperwork took an hour to complete. Marcus arranged for a heavy-lift transport to move the alien vessel to his facility, a process that would eat up another 1,000 credits he didn't have. By evening, the mysterious ship sat in the main bay of Chun's salvage, looking even more damaged under the harsh LED work lights. The vessel was roughly 70 meters long and 30 meters wide, with flowing organic curves that seemed to ripple even in stillness. The whole material was unlike anything Marcus had encountered before, appearing almost black in some lights while showing hints of deep blue or purple from other angles. Blast damage had torn sections of the outer hull away, revealing glimpses of complex internal structures. Marcus walked slowly around the ship, running his hands along the strange metal. It felt warm to the touch and seemed to vibrate slightly, though his instruments detected no active power sources. The craftsmanship was incredible, with no visible seams or welds anywhere on the intact sections. He found what appeared to be an entrance on the port side, where blast damage had partially melted away a section of hull. The opening was just large enough for a person to squeeze through, though jagged edges of alien metal made the passage treacherous. Marcus retrieved a portable light and basic scanning equipment from his workshop, then carefully worked his way inside the vessel. The interior defied his expectations completely. Rather than sterile corridors and mechanical compartments, the ship's interior resembled organic caves and tunnels. Walls curved smoothly without sharp angles, and the floors had a slightly springy texture that seemed almost alive. Soft bioluminescent panels provided dim lighting, apparently still functional despite the external damage. The air inside was breathable, but carried an odd scent, something like ozone mixed with pine forest. Marcus's scanner detected normal oxygen and nitrogen levels with no harmful contaminants. Whoever built this ship had either breathed similar atmosphere to humans or had specifically configured it for human occupancy. As he explored deeper into the vessel, Marcus began to understand its layout. The ship seemed designed around a central core area, with branching passages leading to what might be living quarters, storage areas, and technical compartments. Everything was sized for beings roughly human scale, though the organic aesthetic remained consistent throughout. He found what was clearly the bridge or control center near the front of the ship. Flowing consoles grew from the floor, and walls like crystalline formations, their surfaces dark and inactive. Strange symbols were etched into panels throughout the space, resembling no human language Marcus had ever seen. But it was in a chamber near the rear of the ship that Marcus made his most significant discovery. The room was larger than the others, with higher ceilings and what appeared to be specialized equipment mounted along the walls. In the center stood a cylindrical pod, roughly 3 meters tall, made from the same flowing organic material as the rest of the ship. Transparent sections allowed Marcus to see inside. The pod contained a creature. Marcus's first impression was of a massive wolf, easily twice the size of any Earth canine. The being was humanoid in basic structure, standing upright on 2 powerful legs, but covered in thick fur that ranged from deep gray to silver. Its head was distinctly lupine, with a pronounced muzzle and pointed ears, though the skull structure suggested high intelligence. Powerful arms ended in hands that combined human-like fingers with retractable claws. The creature appeared to be unconscious, suspended in some kind of fluid within the pod. Medical monitoring equipment lined the chamber walls, displaying incomprehensible readouts that pulsed with steady rhythms. Whatever this being was, it was alive. Marcus spent several minutes studying the pod and its occupant, trying to understand what he'd stumbled into. The monitoring displays suggested some kind of medical stasis, possibly life support for serious injuries. Blast damage to the exterior chamber walls indicated this section had taken heavy hits during whatever battle had disabled the ship. As he examined the control panels around the pod, Marcus noticed something that made his heart skip. Several of the displays were flashing in patterns that seemed increasingly urgent. Warning indicators, perhaps, though he couldn't read the alien symbols. He was still trying to decipher the displays when the pod began to hum with new activity. The stasis fluid started to drain away, flowing out through hidden channels in the base. The creature inside began to stir, its breathing becoming more pronounced. Marcus stepped back instinctively, suddenly aware that he was alone in an alien ship with something that could probably tear him apart without effort. The pod's transparent cover split along previously invisible seams and slid away with a soft hiss. The creature's eyes opened, revealing intelligent amber pupils that focused on Marcus immediately. For several seconds, neither of them moved. Marcus felt like prey being evaluated by an apex predator. The alien's gaze was sharp and calculating, taking in every detail of Marcus's appearance and posture. When it finally spoke, the words came out as a low growl in an unknown language. Marcus raised his hand slowly in what he hoped was a universal gesture of non-aggression. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said carefully. "You're on my ship now." "Well, your ship, but I bought it. You're safe." The creature's expression shifted to what might have been confusion, then annoyance. It tried to step forward and stumbled, catching itself against the pod's edge. Whatever injuries had required the medical stasis were apparently still affecting its coordination. When the alien spoke again, its voice carried obvious frustration and pain. The growling words meant nothing to Marcus, but the tone was clear enough. This being was not happy about its current situation. Marcus's tablet chimed with an incoming message from his business partner, reminding him about the overdue rent payment. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd gambled everything on this alien wreck, and now he was face to face with its apparently hostile owner. The creature pushed away from the pod and stood at its full height, nearly 3 meters tall. Despite its obvious weakness, it radiated an aura of barely controlled violence. Amber eyes fixed on Marcus again, and the alien's lips pulled back to reveal impressive fangs. Marcus realized that buying this ship might have been the biggest mistake of his life. But as he looked at the magnificent being before him, he also sensed that it might be the beginning of something extraordinary. The alien took another unsteady step forward, and Marcus had to decide whether to run or stand his ground. Something in those intelligent amber eyes suggested that running would be interpreted as weakness, and weakness might prove fatal. He stayed where he was and tried to project calm confidence he didn't feel. Whatever happened next would determine not just his own fate, but possibly the future of human contact with this mysterious species. The creature studied him for another long moment, then spoke again in its growling language. This time, Marcus thought he detected a note of grudging acknowledgement in the tone. Perhaps this wouldn't end with him being torn apart after all. But as the alien's predatory gaze never wavered, Marcus knew his real challenges were just beginning. The salvage dealer and the mysterious wolf being regarded each other in the alien ship's dim lighting, neither quite sure what to make of their unexpected encounter. Marcus had bought what he thought was scrap metal and found himself face to face with something that would change everything he thought he knew about humanity's place in the universe. Outside, the stars looked down on a small salvage yard where the impossible had just become reality. The standoff lasted nearly 10 minutes. Marcus remained motionless while the alien creature seemed to regain its strength, amber eyes never leaving his face. Finally, the being spoke again, but this time something remarkable happened. The growling words shifted, becoming more familiar, until Marcus realized he could understand them. "You are human," the creature said, its voice deep and resonant. The accent was strange, but the meaning was clear. Marcus nodded carefully. "Yes, my name is Marcus Chun. This is Earth in the Sol System." The alien's expression darkened with what appeared to be disgust. "Earth, the scavenger world." It pushed away from the medical pod and stood fully upright, towering over Marcus. "I am Kethvar of the Vorthak. You will return my ship immediately." "I'm afraid that's not possible," Marcus replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I purchased this vessel legally from my government. It was salvaged from the Titan debris field as derelict property." Kethvar's lips curled back in a snarl. "Your government had no right to sell what was never theirs. The Shadowhawk belongs to my people." "Your people?" Marcus gestured around the damaged chamber. "Where are they?" The question seemed to strike Kethvar like a physical blow. His shoulders sagged slightly, and for a moment the predatory intensity in his eyes was replaced by something that looked like grief. "Gone," Kethvar said quietly. "All gone." Marcus waited for more explanation, but the alien turned away and began examining the damaged medical equipment. His movements were still unsteady, but growing stronger by the minute. Whatever the stasis pod had been doing, It appeared to have accelerated his healing process significantly. "I'm sorry," Marcus said finally. "What happened to them?" Kethvar spun around, anger flaring again. "What happened? Your species happened, human. Your kind spread across the galaxy like a plague, stealing and copying everything you touch. My people were warriors for 10,000 years before your ancestors crawled out of their caves. We had honor, tradition, technology that could reshape reality itself. And now we are extinct because we were foolish enough to trust scavengers like you." The accusation stung, partly because Marcus could hear genuine pain beneath the anger. But it also sparked his own irritation. "Hold on," Marcus said, his voice growing firmer. "I don't know what contact your people had with humans before, but I've never even seen an alien until today. Most of my species doesn't believe you exist. And I didn't steal this ship. I paid good money for it at legal auction." Ketvar låg bitterly. "Paid money. Yes, that is very human. You reduce everything to commerce, even the sacred vessels of dead civilizations." Marcus felt his temper rising. Sacred or not, this ship was drifting dead in space. If my government hadn't recovered it, it would have eventually fallen into Jupiter's atmosphere and been destroyed completely. At least this way, it can be studied and preserved. "Studied," Kethvar repeated with contempt. "You mean dismantled and copied. That is what humans do. You take what others have built and make crude imitations." "Maybe that's true sometimes," Marcus admitted. "But it's also how we learn and grow. Every species builds on what came before. Even your people must have learned from others." Kethvar was quiet for a moment, and Marcus thought he detected uncertainty in the alien's expression. Finally, Kethvar moved to one of the control panels and placed his hand against its surface. The panel immediately lit up with complex displays of information. "This ship contains technology your species will not understand for centuries," Kethvar said. "The quantum fold drives alone require mathematics that are beyond human comprehension. The weapon systems could level continents. The navigation computer holds star charts to territories your explorers have never dreamed of visiting." Marcus approached cautiously and looked at the displays. The information was completely incomprehensible to him, flowing symbols and three-dimensional diagrams that seemed to shift and change as he watched. But the complexity was undeniably impressive. "Then, teach me," Marcus said. Kethvar stared at him in obvious disbelief. "Teach you? Human, I just told you this technology is centuries beyond your understanding. Maybe the mathematics are beyond me," Marcus acknowledged. "But I understand engineering principles. I've been working with spacecraft my entire life. If you show me how things work, I might be able to learn the basics." "Why would I do that?" Marcus gestured around the damaged chamber. "Because your ship is broken, and I have the tools and facilities to repair it. Because you're injured and alone, and I'm offering to help. And because maybe, just maybe, working together, we could accomplish something neither of us could do alone." Kethvar's amber eyes studied Marcus with renewed interest. "You would give up the opportunity to sell this technology to your government for profit?" The question caught Marcus off guard. He hadn't actually considered that option, probably because he'd never imagined the ship would turn out to be functional. But now that Kethvar mentioned it, the implications were staggering. If this alien technology was as advanced as claimed, it could be worth billions of credits to the right buyers. "I don't know," Marcus said honestly. "Maybe I could make a fortune selling your secrets. But that would make me the kind of scavenger you already think I am. I'd rather prove that humans can be better than that." Kethvar turned back to the control panel, his expression unreadable. For several minutes, he manipulated the displays, calling up different sets of information. Marcus watched in fascination as complex schematics appeared and disappeared on the screen. "The Shadowhawk was damaged in our final battle," Kethvar said eventually. "The quantum fold core is offline, life support is running on emergency power, and the main weapon arrays are completely destroyed. Even with your facilities, repairs would take months." "I have time," Marcus replied, "and I'm a good worker. But "You are human," Kethvar said, as if this explained everything. "Your species lacks the patience for detailed work. You want everything accomplished quickly with minimum effort. You have no understanding of craftsmanship or proper technique." Marcus felt his anger rising again. "That's a pretty broad generalization about 4 billion people you've never met." "I have met humans before," Kethvar replied coldly. "They were disappointing." "Well, maybe you met the wrong humans." Kethvar activated another display, this one showing what appeared to be a damage assessment of the entire ship. The extent of the problems was sobering. Nearly every major system showed some level of malfunction or complete failure. "Even if you could learn to assist with repairs," Kethvar said, "there are components that cannot be replaced. Certain materials that existed only on my homeworld. Technologies that died with my people's master craftsmen." Marcus studied the damage display, noting several areas that looked familiar despite the alien design. Engineering problems were universal, apparently. "Maybe we can't make perfect replacements," he suggested, "but we might be able to build functional alternatives. Human technology isn't as elegant as yours, but it works. Sometimes crude solutions are better than no solutions at all." Kethvar actually smiled at that, though it looked predatory on his wolfish features. "Crude solution. Yes, that will be very human." Over the next hour, Kethvar began explaining some of the ship's basic systems to Marcus. The alien's attitude remained condescending, but he seemed genuinely surprised by Marcus's ability to grasp engineering concepts quickly. The human salvage dealer asked intelligent questions and made observations that showed he was thinking beyond simple technical details. The ship's power system was based on what Kethvar called quantum resonance crystals, which converted matter directly into usable energy with virtually no waste. The propulsion system used controlled space-time distortions to achieve faster-than-light travel without the massive energy requirements of human jump drives. Even the life support systems were elegant, using biological processors that could adapt to different atmospheric requirements automatically. All of it was far beyond current human technology, but Marcus began to see patterns and principles that might be adaptable. His species might not be able to build quantum resonance crystals, but they could probably create functional power conduits. They couldn't manipulate space-time directly, but they might be able to build crude interface systems that would allow human components to work alongside alien ones. "This is impossible," Kethvar muttered after Marcus suggested using human plasma conduits to bypass damaged alien power routing systems. "Your technology is too primitive to interface with our systems safely." "Then, we make it safer," Marcus replied. "Buffer circuits, isolation chambers, emergency disconnects. It might not be elegant, but it could work." Kethvar stared at him for a long moment. "You actually believe you can repair the Shadowhawk using scavenged human components?" "I believe we can try," Marcus said. "And I believe that trying is better than letting your ship decay in my salvage yard while you complain about how inferior my species is." The alien's amber eyes flashed with anger, and for a moment Marcus thought he'd pushed too far. Kethvar's powerful hands clenched into fists, and the human could imagine those retractable claws extending to tear him apart. Instead, Kethvar threw back his head and laughed. It was a deep, rumbling sound that seemed to fill the entire chamber. "Very well, human Marcus Chun," Kethvar said when his laughter subsided. "You wish to prove that your species can be more than scavengers? Then we will attempt the impossible. But when you fail, as you inevitably will, do not expect sympathy for your limitations." Marcus grinned and extended his hand. "Deal." Kethvar stared at the offered hand for a moment, then reached out and grasped it. His grip was careful but firm, and Marcus could feel the incredible strength in those fingers. If the alien had wanted to crush his hand, it would have been effortless. "Deal," Kethvar agreed, though I suspect we are both about to discover just how foolish optimism can be. As they shook hands in the alien ship's medical bay, Marcus felt a surge of excitement unlike anything he'd experienced before. He was about to attempt repairs on technology that was centuries beyond human understanding, working alongside a being from a warrior race that viewed his species as inferior scavengers. The smart thing would be to contact his government and sell his discovery for whatever fortune they were willing to pay. The safe thing would be to seal the ship and pretend he'd never found Kethvar at all. But Marcus Chun had never been particularly smart or safe. He was a salvage dealer who took risks that other people wouldn't, and this was the biggest risk of his life. As Kethvar began showing him deeper into the ship's technical sections, Marcus realized that this partnership was going to challenge everything both species thought they knew about each other. The cantankerous alien wolf had expected another disappointing encounter with greedy, short-sighted humans. Instead, he found someone willing to work alongside him as an equal, even if that equality had to be earned through demonstrated competence rather than simply assumed. The real test would come when they actually began attempting repairs, but Marcus was looking forward to proving that humans could be worthy partners for even the most advanced alien technology. The Shadowhawk might be broken, but it wasn't beyond hope of resurrection. Neither was the partnership between a desperate human salvage dealer and the last survivor of a proud warrior race. 2 weeks into their partnership, Marcus was beginning to understand why Kethvar had such a low opinion of human engineering. Every solution he proposed was met with detailed explanations of why it wouldn't work, couldn't work, or would probably explode spectacularly if attempted. The alien seemed to take genuine pleasure in pointing out the flaws in human technology. Your plasma conduits are crude and inefficient, Kethvar said for the dozenth time as they worked in the ship's engineering section. They waste 60% of transmitted energy as heat and require massive cooling systems to prevent catastrophic failure. Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead and continued working on the power coupling he was installing. They're also reliable, easy to manufacture, and compatible with every human spacecraft built in the last 50 years. Sometimes crude and efficient beats elegant and fragile. Kethvar made a dismissive growling sound. Nothing Vorthack was ever fragile, human. Our technology endured for millennia. And yet here we are, trying to fix your broken ship with my crude human tools, Marcus pointed out. The alien fell silent at that reminder, and Marcus immediately regretted the comment. Over the past 2 weeks, he learned that Kethvar's hostility masked a deep grief over the loss of his people. Poking at that wound wasn't just cruel, it was counterproductive. "I'm sorry," Marcus said. "That was uncalled for." Kethvar was quiet for several minutes, working on the quantum resonance housing that would interface with Marcus's improvised power system. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than usual. "The Shadowhawk was damaged defending our homeworld from the Devourers," he said. 300 ships of my people fought against 1,000 of theirs. We held them for 6 hours before the final line broke." Marcus stopped working and looked at his unlikely partner. This was more than Kethvar had ever shared about his past. "What are the Devourers?" Marcus asked. "A machine intelligence that consumes entire civilizations," Kethvar replied. "They take technology, resources, even biological patterns from conquered worlds, adding everything to their collective knowledge. They have been spreading across this galaxy for over 1,000 years." The casual way Kethvar described galactic conquest made Marcus's blood run cold. "And they destroyed your people?" "They tried. The Vorthack fought for 7 years before the homeworld fell. Most of our fleet was destroyed in the final battle, but a few ships escaped to carry on the fight." Kethvar's hands paused in their work. "The Shadowhawk was one of the last to leave. I was wounded in the evacuation." Marcus began to understand the full scope of what he was dealing with. Kethvar wasn't just a member of an advanced alien species. He was a refugee from a galactic war that humanity knew nothing about. "Are the Devourers still out there?" Marcus asked. "Always. They never stop expanding, never stop consuming. Your species will encounter them eventually, probably within the next century." The prospect of humanity facing a machine intelligence capable of destroying civilizations like Kethvar's was terrifying. Human space forces were designed for dealing with pirates and territorial disputes, not existential threats. "Could we defend ourselves?" Marcus asked. Kethvar looked at him with something that might have been pity. "Humans? Against the Devourers?" You would last perhaps a day. Thank for the vote of confidence. It is not a matter of confidence, but capability. The Devourers adapt to overcome whatever resistance they encounter. They learn from every battle, incorporating new technologies and tactics into their collective knowledge. Fighting them requires not just advanced weapons, but strategic thinking beyond what most species possess. Marcus turned back to his work, but his mind was racing. If hostile machine intelligences were spreading across the galaxy, humanity needed to prepare. Advanced alien technology like the Shadowhawk systems could make the difference between survival and extinction. What about other species? He asked. Surely someone has found a way to stop them. Some resist longer than others. The crystalline hierarchies held out for nearly 2 decades. The Void Walkers managed to evacuate most of their population to another galaxy. But no one has ever truly defeated the Devourers. They are too numerous, too adaptable, too relentless. But you're still fighting them. Kethvar's amber eyes met Marcus's gaze. I'm the last of my people. When the Shadowhawk is repaired, I will seek out other survivors and continue the war. It is my duty. Marcus felt a surge of admiration for the alien warrior. Alone, outgunned, and facing impossible odds, Kethvar still intended to keep fighting. There is something profoundly human about that kind of stubborn determination. Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm from Marcus's communication system. He pulled out his tablet and frowned at the display. 3 ships were approaching his salvage yard at high velocity, broadcasting no identification codes. We have visitors, Marcus announced. Kethvar immediately moved to one of the alien control panels and activated what appeared to be a scanning system. Pirates, he said after a moment. Heavily armed, moving in attack formation. Marcus's stomach dropped. Pirate raids on salvage operations were rare, but not unknown. They typically sought valuable cargo or components that could be quickly stolen and resold, but most pirates avoided targets that might put up serious resistance. They must have heard about the alien ship, Marcus realized. Word travels fast in the salvage community. How many ships? Kethvar asked. Marcus checked his sensors. 3 light cruisers, probably modified for raiding. My yard's defenses won't stop them. Kethvar studied the tactical display with professional interest. Your people fight without honor, attacking civilians for profit. But these pirates appear to be competent warriors nonetheless. Wonderful, Marcus muttered. He activated his facility's emergency protocols, sealing all the buildings and powering up what defensive systems he had. They weren't much, a few automated turrets designed to deter small-scale theft, but they might buy some time. The Shadowhawk's weapons are offline, Kethvar said. But the ship's armor could withstand their attacks indefinitely. Great, so we can hide while they steal everything else I own. Marcus ran calculations in his head. The pirates would dock within 15 minutes. His facility's security systems might hold them for another 10 minutes after that. Not enough time to call for help, even if help was available. There's another option, Kethvar said slowly. I'm listening. The Shadowhawk's engines are functional, and I have restored basic maneuvering control. We could launch and engage them directly. Marcus stared at the alien in disbelief. You want to take on 3 armed cruisers in a ship that barely has life support. The Shadowhawk was built for war, human. Even damaged, it is more than a match for crude pirate vessels. But you said the weapons were offline. Kethvar smiled, showing his fangs. I said the main weapon arrays were offline. The Shadowhawk has other capabilities. Marcus considered their options. Stay and fight with inadequate defensive systems, hide in the ship and hope the pirates didn't find them, or launch in a partially functional alien warship and somehow defeat 3 modern cruisers. When he put it like that, the choice was obvious. What do you need me to do? Marcus asked. Can you pilot this vessel? Marcus looked at the alien control systems with their flowing organic interfaces. Not a chance. Then you will handle the human-built components while I manage flight control and weapons. Follow my instructions precisely, and do not hesitate when I give commands. Marcus strapped himself into what appeared to be a secondary control station. The seat adapted to his human physiology automatically, and several displays shifted to show information in formats he could understand. Powering engines, Kethvar announced. The Shadowhawk's main bay doors had been damaged in the original battle, but Marcus had rigged a manual override system during their repair work. He triggered it now, watching the massive doors grind slowly open. Outside, the 3 pirate cruisers were already entering the system's outer detection grid. They would be within weapons range in minutes. The Shadowhawk lifted off smoothly, its organic hull shimmering as damaged stealth systems tried to engage. The ship's artificial gravity was still functioning, so Marcus barely felt the motion despite their rapid acceleration. "Target the lead vessel," Kethvar said. "I will demonstrate why the Vorthack were feared across the galaxy." The first pirate cruiser detected them and immediately began evasive maneuvers. Its companion ships spread out in a standard attack formation, trying to surround the alien vessel. "They're treating us like a normal opponent," Marcus observed. "That's going to be a mistake." "Indeed," Kethvar replied. "The captain who commanded this ship before me destroyed 47 enemy vessels. Today we add 3 more to that total." The lead pirate opened fire with plasma cannons, bright energy bolts streaking through space toward the Shadowhawk. Kethvar didn't even try to dodge. The alien armor absorbed the impacts without visible effect. "Now watch and learn what real weapons can accomplish," Kethvar said. The Shadowhawk's response was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. Instead of conventional energy beams or projectiles, the ship seemed to reach out with invisible force and simply crush the attacking cruiser. One moment, it was firing at them. The next, it was imploding under gravitational stress that had appeared from nowhere. "Gravitational pulse cannon," Kethvar explained casually. "We borrowed the technology from a species that lived inside gas giants. Very effective against vessels that rely on structural integrity." The 2 remaining pirates immediately broke off their attack and tried to flee. But the Shadowhawk was faster, overtaking them despite their head start. The second cruiser suffered the same fate as the first, crushed like an empty cannon in an invisible fist. The third pirate captain proved more resourceful. Instead of running in a straight line, he began executing complex evasive patterns while launching every weapon he had at the alien ship. None of his attacks penetrated the Shadowhawk's armor, but his tactics bought him precious seconds. "He's good," Marcus admitted, watching the tactical display. "Good enough to survive perhaps another minute," Kethvar agreed. "But human tactics are predictable. He will attempt to use his ship's superior maneuverability to stay outside our weapon range." The prediction proved accurate. The pirate cruiser was smaller and more agile than the Shadowhawk, dancing around the alien vessel while maintaining maximum distance. If the Vorthack ship had been limited to conventional weapons, the tactic might have worked. Instead, Kethvar activated something he called a phase disruptor. The fleeing cruiser simply vanished, disappearing as if it had never existed. "What happened to it?" Marcus asked. "Phase shifted into an alternate dimensional space," Kethvar explained. "The crew will remain alive for approximately 6 hours before the artificial pocket universe collapses." Marcus stared at his alien partner in amazement. "You just erased a starship from reality. Temporarily. Permanent erasure would require more power than we currently have available." The casual way Kethvar discussed weapons that could manipulate fundamental forces of reality made Marcus realize just how far beyond human technology the Vorthack had progressed. If this was what a damaged ship could accomplish, what could a fully functional alien fleet do? As they returned to the salvage yard, Marcus found himself looking at his partner with new respect. Kethvar wasn't just a refugee from a dead civilization. He was a warrior whose people had commanded forces that could reshape space and time itself. "That was incredible," Marcus said as they settled back into the main bay. "Your weapons, your technology, no wonder you think humans are primitive." Kethvar was quiet for a moment, manipulating controls to power down the ship systems. "The technology is impressive," he agreed finally. "But It was not technology that defeated those pirates. What do you mean? You did not hesitate when I asked you to launch with me. You did not panic when we engaged superior numbers. You followed instructions accurately and, without question, even though you could not understand most of what we were doing. Kethvar turned to look at Marcus directly. That is not primitive behavior. That is the conduct of a warrior. Marcus felt warmth spreading through his chest at the unexpected praise. I was terrified the entire time. Good warriors often are. Fear keeps you alert and focused. Only fools feel no fear in battle. As they secured the ship and returned to their repair work, Marcus realized that something fundamental had changed between them. The battle against the pirates had proven that humans and Vorthak could work together effectively, each contributing their own strengths to achieve victory. Kethvar might still consider human technology crude and inefficient, but he could no longer dismiss human courage and adaptability. And Marcus had seen firsthand what advanced alien technology could accomplish in the hands of someone who truly understood warfare. Their partnership was becoming something neither of them had expected when they first met in the medical bay 2 weeks earlier. The cantankerous alien wolf was learning that humans might be worthy allies after all, and Marcus was beginning to understand that he might be humanity's first ambassador to a galaxy far more dangerous than anyone on Earth could imagine. The successful defense against the pirates marked a turning point in their working relationship. Over the following month, Kethvar became less condescending and more collaborative, actually asking for Marcus's opinions rather than simply tolerating his presence. The human salvage dealer proved surprisingly adept at improvising solutions to complex engineering problems, often finding ways to make incompatible systems work together through clever workarounds. But it was while repairing the ship's navigation computer that they made their most significant discovery. The quantum data core is severely damaged, Kethvar explained as they worked in the ship's central computer chamber. Most of our stellar cartography has been corrupted beyond recovery. Marcus studied the crystalline storage device, noting the hairline fractures that spread across its surface like a spider web. Can we replace it? Not with anything available on Earth. This core contains navigation data for over 40,000 star systems, including spatial distortion maps that allow faster-than-light travel. Your species' computers lack the processing power to handle such calculations. What about partial recovery? Marcus suggested. Maybe we can't restore everything, but we might be able to salvage some of the data. Kethvar considered this possibility. Perhaps. The core's outer layers are most damaged, but the inner sections might still contain usable information. They spent the next several hours carefully disassembling the data core, working layer by layer to access its inner components. Marcus found the work fascinating, watching as Kethvar manipulated quantum storage crystals that looked like jeweled artwork but contained more information than Earth's entire computer network. This is interesting, Kethvar said suddenly. He was examining a section of crystal that had maintained its structural integrity despite the surrounding damage. The data here appears to be personal rather than navigational. Personal how? Kethvar interfaced directly with the crystal, his expression growing increasingly troubled as he absorbed its contents. These are the final records of Captain Thravin, my commanding officer. She encoded them just before the Shadowhawk left our homeworld. Marcus waited quietly while Kethvar processed whatever information he was receiving. The alien's amber eyes reflected complex emotions, grief, anger, and something that might have been hope. What does it say? Marcus asked finally. Captain Thravin believed that some of our people might have survived the Devourer attack. Not on our homeworld, but scattered across the galaxy in hidden facilities and secret colonies. She was attempting to reach one such location when the ship was damaged. Kethvar manipulated the crystal interface again, calling up what appeared to be a star chart. Unlike the flowing, organic displays Marcus had grown accustomed to seeing, this one was stark and utilitarian, showing jump routes and gravitational hazard zones. There, Kethvar said, pointing to a section of the display. The Kethmori system, 47 light-years from here. Captain Thravin believed a Vorthack research facility might still be operational there. Marcus studied the navigation data, noting that the system was well outside human-explored space. What kind of research facility? Advanced weapons development. My people were working on new technologies to fight the Devourers when our homeworld fell. If the facility survived, it might contain weapons capable of turning the tide against the machine intelligence. The implications were staggering. If Kethvar was right, there might be Vorthack survivors working on weapons that could defend against galactic-scale threats. But the facility was nearly 50 light-years away, far beyond the range of any human spacecraft. How long would it take to get there? Marcus asked. In the Shadowhawk? Approximately 3 weeks, assuming the quantum fold drive can be fully repaired. Kethvar's expression darkened. But the drive requires components we cannot manufacture here. Quantum resonance crystals of a specific harmonic frequency, bioneural interface cables, gravitational field generators rated for dimensional stress. Marcus listened to the list of impossible requirements, his heart sinking. They'd made remarkable progress repairing the ship's basic systems, but faster-than-light travel was apparently beyond their capabilities. What about human technology? He suggested. Our jump drives aren't as sophisticated as yours, but they work. Maybe we could adapt one to interface with your ship. Kethvar looked at him with obvious skepticism. Human jump drives create localized space-time distortions that allow short-range teleportation. The power requirements for a 47 light-year jump would be enormous. Not one jump, Marcus clarified. Multiple smaller jumps. Human ships typically make 15 to 20 jumps for a journey that long, stopping to recharge between each one. The Shadowhawk's power systems are designed for quantum fold technology, not crude jump drive mechanics. The energy patterns are completely incompatible. Marcus was beginning to understand the scope of the engineering challenge they faced. It wasn't just a matter of installing human components in an alien ship. They would need to completely redesign the power distribution system to accommodate fundamentally different technologies. It would be incredibly dangerous, Marcus said slowly, thinking through the possibilities. Jump drives require precise calculations and exact power levels. Any mistake could tear the ship apart or strand us in interstellar space. Then, we cannot attempt it, Kethvar concluded. The risk is too great. But Marcus found himself unable to let the idea go. Over the next several days, he worked on theoretical designs for hybrid propulsion systems, trying to find ways to make human and Vorthack technologies compatible. The mathematics were beyond his understanding, but he could visualize mechanical solutions to interface problems. Meanwhile, Kethvar continued working on the ship's other systems, gradually restoring functionality to weapons, sensors, and life support. The Shadowhawk was becoming space-worthy again, even if it couldn't travel between star systems. It was while Marcus was sketching his latest propulsion design that they received an unexpected visitor. Admiral Sarah Chun, Marcus's sister and a high-ranking officer in Earth's space fleet, arrived at the salvage yard with a small escort of military vessels. Marcus watched her ship dock with a mixture of affection and apprehension. Sarah never made social calls, especially not with armed escorts. "Hello, Marcus," she said as she entered the main facility. "We need to talk." Sarah was 3 years older than Marcus and had inherited their father's talent for command. Where Marcus had chosen the unpredictable life of a salvage dealer, she'd built a distinguished military career through careful planning and political skill. They respected each other, but rarely agreed on anything. "Let me guess," Marcus said. "Someone reported unusual energy signatures from my facility, and now Fleet Intelligence wants to investigate." Something like that. Sarah's eyes were already scanning the main bay, taking note of the alien ship dominating the space. Though the reports didn't adequately describe what we'd find here. Kethvar chose that moment to emerge from the Shadowhawk, his imposing figure causing Sarah's security detail to reach for their weapons instinctively. The alien warrior studied the humans with obvious amusement, apparently unbothered by their hostile reactions. "Admiral Sarah Chun," Marcus said formally, "I'd like you to meet Kethvar of the Vorthack." "Kethvar, this is my sister Sarah." Kethvar inclined his head, slightly in what might have been a bow. "Admiral, your brother has proven to be a capable ally." Sarah's professional composure never wavered, but Marcus could see the shock in her eyes. First contact with an alien species was supposed to involve extensive protocols and diplomatic procedures, not casual introductions in a salvage yard. "Mr. Kethvar," she replied carefully, "I apologize for the somewhat hostile reception. We weren't expecting to encounter a representative of your species." "Few species are prepared for such encounters," Kethvar acknowledged. "Your brother adapted more quickly than most." Sarah turned to Marcus with an expression that promised serious conversations later. "Marcus, we need to discuss the implications of this situation. An alien presence on Earth raises significant security concerns." "Kethvar isn't a threat to Earth," Marcus said quickly. "He's a refugee from a war most humans don't even know exists. And he has information we desperately need." "What kind of information?" Marcus looked at Kethvar, who nodded permission to continue. "There's a machine intelligence called the Devourers that's been destroying civilizations across the galaxy for over 1,000 years. They'll reach human space eventually, probably within the next century. We need to prepare." Sarah absorbed this information with professional calm, but Marcus could see the wheels turning in her mind. She was already thinking about threat assessments, strategic implications, and resource allocation. "How reliable is this intelligence?" she asked. "The Devourers destroyed my homeworld and killed my people," Kethvar said quietly. "I was there when our greatest fleet was annihilated in a single day. The intelligence is completely reliable. And you believe they pose a threat to humanity?" "They pose a threat to all biological life. The Devourers consume civilizations, absorbing their technology and knowledge before moving on to the next target. Humanity would be of particular interest to them because of your species' adaptability." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "What would you recommend as defensive preparations?" "Advanced weapons, better armor, faster ships," Kethvar replied. "But most importantly, you need allies. No single species can stand against the Devourers alone. The galaxy's survivors must work together to have any hope of resistance." "Survivors like the research facility you were trying to reach?" Marcus added. Sarah looked between them, clearly recognizing that they were asking for something specific. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A joint mission," Marcus said. "The Shadowhawk needs to reach the Kethmori system to locate other Vorthack survivors and potentially acquire advanced weapons technology. But we need human jump drive components to make the journey possible. You want fleet resources for an unauthorized expedition into unexplored space, based on the word of a single alien refugee." Marcus felt his temper rising. "That alien refugee just saved my life from 3 pirate cruisers, using weapons that make our best military hardware look like toys. And the unauthorized expedition could determine whether humanity survives the next century." Sarah held up a hand to forestall further argument. "I'm not dismissing the threat, Marcus, but I can't authorize major resource allocation without proper evaluation and approval from Fleet Command." "How long would that take?" Kethvar asked. "Weeks, possibly months. First contact protocols alone require extensive review." "We don't have months," Marcus said. "Every day we delay is another day the Devourers could be getting closer to human space." Sarah studied the alien ship, clearly impressed despite her professional skepticism. "What would you need from fleet resources?" "Jump drive components, quantum computers, and specialized personnel to help with the integration work," Marcus replied. "Maybe a 2-week commitment from your best engineers." "That's a significant request. It's a small price for potentially saving our entire species," Kethvar observed. Sarah was quiet for several minutes, weighing options and considering consequences. Finally, she turned to Marcus with an expression he recognized from their childhood, the look she got when she was about to take a calculated risk. "I can't authorize official fleet support," she said, "but I might be able to arrange for some equipment to go missing from inventory and a few engineers to take unexpected vacation time." Marcus grinned at his sister. "Sarah, you're magnificent." "I'm probably committing career suicide," she corrected. "But if you're right about this threat, career considerations are irrelevant. Kethvar stepped forward and offered Sarah a formal bow, deeper than his earlier acknowledgement. Admiral, your species is fortunate to have leaders willing to act decisively in the face of uncertainty. It gives me hope that humans might actually survive what's coming. As Sarah began making arrangements for unofficial support, Marcus realized that their mission to reach the Vorthak research facility was actually going to happen. The cantankerous alien wolf who'd awakened in his salvage yard was about to lead humanity toward its first alliance with another species. Whether that alliance would be enough to face the Devourers remained to be seen, but for the first time since learning about the galactic threat, Marcus felt genuine optimism about humanity's chances. The journey to the Kethmori system would test everything they'd learned about cooperation between human and alien technology. But if they succeeded, they might return with weapons and allies capable of defending Earth against an enemy that had consumed entire civilizations. The stakes couldn't be higher, and failure would mean extinction for both their species. But as Marcus looked at the determined expressions on Sarah's and Kethvar's faces, he believed they had a real chance of success. After all, they'd already accomplished the impossible once by making the Shadowhawk space-worthy again. How much harder could it be to save the galaxy? The journey to the Kethmori system took 3 weeks of careful jumps through uncharted space. Admiral Chin's unofficial support had provided them with state-of-the-art human jump drive components and a small team of volunteer engineers who officially didn't exist. The integration of human and Vorthak technologies had been a nightmare of complex calculations and improvised solutions, but somehow Marcus and Kethvar had made it work. They found the Vorthak research facility exactly where Captain Thuravin's records indicated it should be, hidden in the shadow of a gas giant's largest moon. The installation was massive, easily the size of a small city, built into the moon's rocky surface with only minimal external structures visible. No life signs, reported Lieutenant Commander Torres, one of Sarah's engineers who had volunteered for the mission. But the facility is still powered. Something's running automated systems down there. Kethvar studied the sensor readings with growing excitement. The deep storage protocols are active. That means the facility's archives survived, even if the personnel didn't. Marcus felt a mixture of hope and disappointment. They'd found the installation, but apparently too late to rescue any survivors. What kind of archives? Everything, Kethvar replied. Weapons schematics, tactical databases, technological specifications for equipment my people spent centuries developing. If we can access the main computer cores, we could advance human military capabilities by hundreds of years. The landing was accomplished without incident, the Shadowhawk's organic hull adapting to the facility's docking systems as if it belonged there. But as they explored the empty corridors and laboratories, the scope of what they'd found became overwhelming. The Vorthak research facility contained technologies that defied human understanding. Weapons that could manipulate fundamental forces, armor that existed partially in alternate dimensions, propulsion systems that folded space like origami. Marcus found himself taking detailed recordings of everything, knowing that Earth scientists would need decades to comprehend what they were seeing. "This is incredible," Torres breathed as they examined a laboratory full of gravitational manipulation equipment. "If we could understand even half of this technology, your species could defend itself against the Devourers," Kethvar finished. "That was always the plan. My people believed that sharing advanced weapons technology with younger species was the only hope for galactic survival." They were downloading files from the main computer core when the facility's alert systems suddenly activated. Warning lights flashed throughout the complex, and automated defensive systems began powering up. "Something's incoming," Torres reported, checking her scanner. Multiple contacts, large vessels, approaching fast. Marcus felt ice in his veins. Devourers? Kethvar confirmed their worst fears with a single glance at the facility's sensor displays. A scout fleet. 12 ships. Typical exploration pattern. They must have detected our quantum fold signatures. The irony was bitter. They'd finally reached the research facility and gained access to advanced weapons, but the Devourers had arrived before they could learn to use any of it effectively. Humanity's first encounter with a galactic threat would also be their last. "How long do we have?" Marcus asked. "Perhaps an hour before they achieve orbit. Once they detect the facility, they will begin immediate extraction procedures." Torres was frantically copying data files to portable storage devices. "I can maybe download 10% of the archives before we have to run." 10% won't be enough, Marcus said. He was studying the facility schematics, looking for options they hadn't considered. "Kethvar, are any of the weapons here actually functional?" "Several, but they require extensive preparation and targeting data. We would need hours to bring them online properly." Marcus made a decision that probably qualified as insane. "Then, we don't run. We make our stand here." Both Torres and Kethvar stared at him in disbelief. "Marcus," Torres said carefully, "these are the Devourers, the same enemy that destroyed an entire civilization of advanced warriors. We can't fight them with improvised equipment and no training." "Maybe not," Marcus acknowledged, "but we can try, and while we're fighting, the automatic systems can continue downloading the archives. Even if we don't survive, the data might make it back to Earth." Kethvar's amber eyes studied Marcus with something approaching admiration. "You would sacrifice yourself for information that might help your species? Wouldn't you have done the same for the Vort hack?" The alien warrior was quiet for a moment, then threw back his head and laughed. "Human Marcus-chun, you continue to surprise me." "Very well. If we are going to die fighting the Devourers, let us at least make them remember the battle." The next hour passed in frantic preparation. Kethvar activated the facility's defensive systems, while Torres worked to establish communication links with Earth. Marcus found himself coordinating between human and alien technologies again, jury-rigging connections that had no business working, but somehow did. The facility's primary weapon was something called a quantum disruption cannon, capable of tearing holes in space-time itself. But the targeting system required manual operation, and the power requirements were so enormous that firing it would drain the installation's entire energy grid. "We get one shot," Kethvar explained as he walked Marcus through the weapons operation procedures. "Miss, and we will be defenseless when the other ships attack." "No pressure at all," Marcus muttered, studying the targeting displays. The Devourer scout fleet arrived exactly when Kethvar had predicted. 12 ships, each one larger than Earth's biggest dreadnoughts, arranged in a perfect geometric formation. They moved with mechanical precision, scanning the moon's surface with beams of energy that made the Shadowhawk sensors look primitive. "They've detected the facility," Torres reported. 3 ships are breaking off to begin extraction procedures." Marcus watched the tactical display, waiting for the perfect moment. The Devourers approached with absolute confidence, apparently assuming that any defenders would be as helpless as every other species they'd encountered. They were about to learn that humans specialized in unpleasant surprises. Targeting the lead extraction vessel, Marcus announced. Firing in 3, 2, and the quantum disruption cannon discharged with a sound like reality tearing apart. A column of twisted space-time reached out from the facility and touched the Devourer's ship, which simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, erased from the universe as if it had never been built. The remaining Devourer ships reacted instantly, abandoning their extraction formation and spreading out in attack patterns. Energy beams began raining down on the facility's shields, testing their defenses with methodical precision. "Shields holding for now," Torres reported, "but they won't last long under this kind of bombardment." Marcus was already moving to the next weapon system, something called a gravitational pulse generator. Unlike the one-shot quantum cannon, this device could fire repeatedly, but with much less dramatic effect. Instead of erasing ships from existence, it would simply crush them with artificially generated gravity fields. "I count 11 ships remaining," Kethvar said. "Too many to defeat with conventional weapons." "Then, we'll have to be unconventional," Marcus replied. What followed was the strangest battle in human history. Marcus operated alien weapons he barely understood, following instincts developed through years of improvising solutions to impossible engineering problems. Kethvar coordinated the facility's defensive systems while providing tactical advice based on centuries of warfare against the Devourers. Torres maintained communication links with Earth, transmitting everything they learned about Devourer ship designs and attack patterns. Even if they lost the battle, human military forces would have advance warning of what was coming. The gravitational pulse generator claimed 2 more Devourer ships, crushing them like empty cans. But the remaining 9 were adapting their tactics, using coordinated attacks to overwhelm specific sections of the facility's shields. Shield generators 7 and 12 are offline, Torres reported. They're concentrating fire on the main power core. Marcus realized they were going to lose. The Devourers had superior numbers, superior technology, and superior tactical coordination. The only reason they'd lasted this long was surprise and the facility's built-in advantages. But as he watched the tactical display, Marcus noticed something interesting. The Devourer ships were maintaining very precise formation spacing, probably to optimize their coordinated attacks. If something could disrupt that formation, Kethvar, Marcus called, "Does this facility have any kind of area effect weapons? Something that could hit multiple targets simultaneously?" "The dimensional destabilizer," Kethvar replied immediately. "But using it here would be suicide. The weapon tears holes between dimensions. We would be as likely to be destroyed as the enemy." Marcus studied the tactical situation. The Devourers were closing in for final attack runs, and the facility's shields wouldn't survive another concentrated bombardment. They were out of time and almost out of options. "Do it," he ordered. "Marcus, that is madness. The dimensional destabilizer could destroy this entire moon." "Maybe, but if we don't try, the Devourers will definitely destroy us. And then they'll head for Earth with everything they've learned here." Kethvar stared at him for a long moment, then moved to the weapon controls. "You humans truly are insane. I find myself honored to die alongside such warriors." The dimensional destabilizer charged with an ominous humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Reality began to waver around them as the weapon prepared to tear open holes between parallel universes. "Firing," Kethvar announced. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Holes in space opened around each Devourer ship, releasing energies from dimensions where different physical laws applied. Most of the enemy vessels were simply torn apart by forces their armor couldn't resist. But the weapon's effects spread beyond the intended targets. The facility's shields collapsed as dimensional rifts opened in nearby space, and structural damage began spreading throughout the installation. "The moon's crust is destabilizing," Torres reported. "We need to evacuate now." They ran through collapsing corridors toward the docking bay, carrying what archive data they could manage. Behind them, the Vorthak research facility was tearing itself apart as dimensional energies cascaded through its structure. The Shadowhawk launched just as the moon's surface began cracking open. Through the ship's viewports, Marcus watched millennia of Vorthak research disappear into dimensional rifts, taking with it technologies that could have revolutionized human civilization. But they'd accomplished their mission. The Devourer scout fleet was destroyed, buying Earth precious time to prepare. And the archive data they'd managed to download would give human scientists their first real look at technologies centuries beyond current capabilities. "How much of the archives did we save?" Marcus asked as they jumped away from the collapsing system. "About 30%, Torres replied. "Weapon schematics, defensive technologies, some propulsion data. Not everything, but enough to make a difference." Kethvar was studying long-range sensor displays, checking for any signs of additional Devourer presence. "The scout fleet was operating independently," he announced. "The main Devourer force is still several years away from this sector." Marcus felt a surge of relief. They'd bought time, not much, but enough for humanity to begin preparing for the inevitable confrontation. The return journey to Earth took 4 weeks, during which they worked frantically to analyze and organize the recovered data. What they learned was both inspiring and terrifying. Vorthack weapons technology was centuries ahead of human capabilities, but the Devourers had overcome it through sheer numbers and relentless adaptation. When they finally reached Sol System, Admiral Chun was waiting with a full fleet escort and teams of scientists ready to begin immediate analysis of the alien technology. The implications of their discovery were already reshaping Earth's strategic planning. "How long do we have?" Sarah asked during their first briefing. 5 to 7 years before the main Devourer force reaches human space, Kethvar replied. "Enough time to prepare, if your species is willing to make the necessary commitment." "What kind of commitment?" "Total mobilization. Every shipyard retooled for military production. Every scientist working on defensive technologies. Every resource dedicated to the coming war." Marcus watched his sister absorb this information, seeing the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. Earth's entire future depended on decisions made in the next few months. "Will it be enough?" Sarah asked. Kethvar looked at Marcus before answering. "Your brother faced 12 Devourer ships with improvised weapons and succeeded through determination and tactical innovation. If the rest of humanity possesses similar courage and adaptability, you might actually survive." As the briefing continued, Marcus found himself thinking about the journey that had brought them to this point. He'd started as a desperate salvage dealer, trying to save his failing business, and somehow become humanity's first ambassador to an alien species. The cantankerous alien wolf who'd awakened in his ship had challenged every assumption about human limitations. Kethvar had expected to find another species of greedy scavengers, but instead discovered allies capable of standing against impossible odds. Their partnership had saved both their lives and potentially both their species. The Shadowhawk was repaired, humanity had access to advanced alien technology, and Earth finally knew what was coming from the depths of space. It wouldn't be enough to guarantee survival, but it was a start. And sometimes, Marcus reflected, the most important journeys begin with a single step into the unknown. The war against the Devourers was coming, but humanity would face it with allies, advanced weapons, and the knowledge that even the most advanced civilizations could be defeated by courage, determination, and the willingness to stand together against extinction. Marcus Chun had bought a broken alien starship and found something far more valuable than advanced technology. He'd found proof that the universe was full of species willing to fight for their survival, and that even the darkest threats could be overcome by those brave enough to face them. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but it wasn't empty of hope. As long as beings like Kethvar and humans like Marcus were willing to stand against the darkness, there was always a chance for light to prevail. And sometimes that was all the hope anyone needed.